Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another video. As you can tell by the title of this video, this one's going to be a little more serious than the last, a little more introspective, a little more reflective. For those who haven't seen my other video, I talk more about my experience being hospitalized for 2 weeks with HLH, which is hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. We've had some time to practice this, so go ahead and click down below if you want to hear more about the details of what happened. I'm not going to go too much into that. But in this video, I'm going to be talking more about what it was like to go through this experience and what it is like to survive something that does have a 60% mortality rate, which is crazy. To be really brief for the sake of this video, HLH is an autoimmune disease in which your body turns inwardly on itself and begins attacking itself. It continues attacking your body until your body shuts down on itself, and this is why many people die. And the reason why many people die is because it is disguised as an infectious disease. That's how it presents. So many people don't clue in that it could be HLH because it is extremely rare, and that wouldn't be the first thing that you would think of. There are two types. As I described in my other video, there's familial, which is genetic, and in this case people have to get bone marrow transplants to replace the faulty cells that are prompting the HLH. And then there's acquired in my case, which is what was triggered by mono. In my case, it was caught at a good time, and of course I'm here, I'm on steroids, as you can see in my other video. Please click, yeah, cool. What does it feel like, okay? What does it feel like to have your body shut down? I'll tell a little anecdote about when I really felt, I was like, this is it, that moment when I felt it. So I entered the ICU because I was going down really quickly. And the thing that really told me that it was getting serious was the breathing. And for those of you who have ever had difficulty breathing, for any reason, it's a signal to your brain that things are going down. And I couldn't breathe, and there was about 6 doctors around me, and then I started feeling really sick. But the thing is, when I sat up, I couldn't breathe even more because my internal organs were swollen and my stomach was this big because there was so much swelling and fluid retention. So this is TMI, skip forward if you have like emetophobia, like vomiting phobia. I began dry heaving, and because of this, I couldn't breathe at all. And I remember looking up to my dad. I said, help me, and I was crying, and I said to the doctor, I said, help me, I can't breathe. And that's when I knew that it was really, really, really bad. It was at that point that I started having tunnel vision as well, and things were just getting narrower because there was less and less oxygen going to my brain. Another thing that started to happen when I was losing oxygen was the tips of my fingers started to go numb. First it was pins and needles, and then it was numb and tingly. And I thought, that's weird. And it didn't click until very recently that it was because my oxygen levels were really low. So the little oxygen monitor thing on your finger, it's supposed to be at, 95 to 100. That's normal. Mine was at like 86, 85, something like that. And I didn't know how to make sense of all these things at the time. I didn't really know what was happening, and I didn't really feel scared. The only time I felt scared was when the breathing started to go. But during this time, I didn't consider the fact that I might be dying, and no one told me that this was really bad. The only thing that indicated that things might be really bad is, number one, the number of people that were in the room, number two, that they moved me into the surveillance room, and number three, that my dad was crying. And I was very confused by this, and I was also very delusional because of the fever, because of the pain, and because of the lack of oxygen. So a lot of this was just one giant blackout to me. I didn't know what was going on. But it's hard to give details because I wasn't really present. One other thing that also indicated the severity is I remember the hematologist coming in and asking me a few questions, but I was pretty delusional by this point, and I could just see she looked at me like this. She was like, and then she like looked at my dad, and then it was 10 minutes later that I ended up in the ICU. And that made me worried, to have a doctor be like, oh my God. and seeing the people whispering amongst each other, healthcare professionals, because this is not something that you see a lot. Of course, HLH is extremely rare, and they had different departments all working together, and you know, that was also an indicator. During this, no one told me how severe this was. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't know, because I think that it would have made me extremely anxious and it would have made the symptoms worse. So that's kind of my... So afterwards, I wake up, I'm not in the ICU anymore, because I'm being pumped with steroids, and I'm here, of course. And just the shock factor of what just happened was so heavy, because so they hadn't told me what was going on yet. So I decided to go on my phone. The Wi-Fi was really good in the hospital, and I Googled HLH. That's all I knew. HLH, what is that? Who knows? And the first thing I saw was fatal disease, bone marrow transplant, chemotherapy, and this was all I saw. I also saw, I didn't know that I didn't have the familial kind yet, and it said, many die, even with bone marrow transplant, within 5 years. And I sat there and I just cried by myself. My dad wasn't there yet. He had gone back to the hotel to sleep. And this was a huge, you can imagine, it just hit me like a truck. The first thing that went through my mind was, oh my gosh, I could have died yesterday and I'm 21 years old. Number 2, am I still going to die? Number 3, is this going to permanently affect me for the rest of my life? So I continued to look and deep dive on the internet, and I found these just horribly scary things. And at this point, again, I didn't know what was going on. I was very active on my social media. Literally the day before, I did like a Q&A on like my private Instagram. Like, I was just messing around, seemed totally fine because the decline was so quick, right? You know, what would people think? What if, you know, this had been caught 3 hours later? Because what I kept reading online was prognosis is entirely contingent on when treatment commences because of how fast the immune response is. What if June 7th, when I was in the ICU, June 7th is when I passed away, you know? Like June 7th was supposed to be the time when I'm back in Vancouver hanging out with my friends before starting my summer camp job. Supposed to be having fun before I start my master's, making some extra spending money. What if June 7th was the day that I died? And it really was that close. And I'm not trying to exaggerate or emphasize, but I've been reflecting on this a lot lately. And I'm extremely grateful. And also something that I have been reflecting on is that my survival, my existence here today, is entirely contingent on doctors and nurses' quick thinking. And their quick thinking is contingent on how tired they were that day, how their interactions were that day, their education, their knowledge on autoimmune diseases, all things that are completely out of my control. And I was putting my well-being entirely into their hands of the dozens of doctors that were involved in my case, because I baffled everyone. And also everyone was freaking out because I was very, very young and there weren't that many young people in the ER at that time. That's what they told me. Just the fact that it worked out in my favor and that all of this was out of my control. And then came the confusion, you know, what? Why me? And, you know, I Googled what this is, and there's a thing called survivor's guilt. And this is when you survive something traumatic and you think, well, why was it me that survived? Why me, as opposed to the thousands of others that die from this disease? And I'm still struggling with that. You know, I easily could have been one of the 50% that passed. I could be on an obituary right now. My face could be on an obituary. But on the other hand, why was it me who got this? In my other video, I mentioned that there's a less than 5% chance of this happening to me after 7 years in remission of arthritis. That, in combination with the fact that HLH is already very rare, why was it me? I choose not to think about that because I want to be as positive as I can, but I do wonder and I do reflect on why it was me that survived. And recently I've joined a bunch of HLH forums and Facebook groups, and I'm interacting with parents of children with HLH and widows of people who have lost their partners to HLH. And it's really made me think, wow, the universe was really on my side. And I don't know what I did to deserve this. I don't know how things aligned in the way that they did. But let me tell you, I am not taking this lightly. I am not taking this second chance lightly in any way, shape, or form. When I read stories of people who have been in the hospital for 10 months with this horrible disease, or who have been incapacitated, or who have died, it makes me feel really nauseous. Number one, because I realize that the same response is going on inside of me right now, and that as I taper my medication, the response could come back. So until I'm off the steroids, we are unsure whether it will come back. Number two, makes me feel really sick to know that there are people feeling that horrible, horrible, horrible visceral sensation that I felt for 2 weeks, but they've been feeling it for months. And then to see people that have passed just makes it hit that could have been me. And what would have happened if I weren't here right now. And how that would affect my family. And how that would affect my friends. And how I'm so incredibly grateful that I'm here, breathing, sitting in front of a camera, looking out into a beautiful garden. Surviving this has given me an opportunity to do great things with my life, and HLH robs even really young children of this. And not only does it take lives, it also robs families of their loved ones, and it damages, and it's fast and quick acting and deadly and debilitating. I feel that after this experience, something in my mind has changed, and I feel a sense of elation and gratitude and almost ecstasy for being alive. Some of the ways that this manifests, when I see my family and friends, I always say, I love you, and I hug them because I don't know if that's going to be the last time. And that sounds really cliche, but I feel it. And the first time that I saw some of my friends, just like tears, because it just makes you realize how grateful you are for them and how irreplaceable they are, and to appreciate every single moment you have with them. That's been huge. I just enjoy my time with my friends and family so much more, and it brings me so much joy. I can't even describe it. Whew, no crying, girl. Also, my recovery time has allowed me to invest in activities that I normally would not have time to do. For example, I love to draw, I love to write songs, I love to, play games and dance. I can't really dance, but maybe a little bit. And I love to read good books and think about them and write about them. There's also such a sense of elation in small things like eating and showering. I love washing my hair. In the hospital, I couldn't wash my hair for 2 weeks and it was disgusting. I'm really investing in self-care, nice oils, painting my nails, enjoying a nice meal, drinking coffee. Just the taste of coffee is wonderful. Just a lot of appreciation for small things. I'm really excited. I have this sense of excitement for the future and what it holds and what it brings. I really feel that something in my brain has just gone, and I feel it, and everything looks different to me, and everything feels different. And when I do things that I did before this experience, they fill me so much more. And I'm one of those people that does think everything happens for a reason. And I think that this was put in my path for me to come to this realization. It's also provided incentive for me to work on myself and my body, and I've realized how precious and fallible my body is, and just putting that extra energy in, stretching, making sure that everything's okay, really being attentive. Do I have a rash? Because that's an indicator of the HLH coming back. Putting love into this thing that holds me, that's in there somewhere. A lot more attentiveness and purpose and care. And I know that a lot of this is going to sound like heebie-jeebies, and I probably would have thought so too before I went through this. But really, when you go through something that you realize could have just killed you, something changes. And my advice to anyone that has not been through something like this, recognize the fallibility of this thing that carries you. Appreciate its robustness and its functioning for the time being. Thank your body for working and allowing you to do wonderful things and hang out with your friends and travel and eat good food, because all of those things can be taken away very instantaneously. So I encourage you to reflect on that and on the things that make you happy, and just giving that little bit of extra gratitude and attention to those things. I think that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, that's my reflections on surviving 50% mortality rate. I might make some more videos. If you have any thoughts or anything, feel free to message me on Instagram, Facebook, comment, DM, anytime. I love hearing from people who have been through similar experiences. But yeah, I'll be back with another video. Bye!